Hello, I am Somayeh McKian, a clinical psychologist from Iran. I have 13 years of experience in research, teaching, and consultation. I am a registered member of a psychology and counseling organization of Iran. I have published 4 international articles in the fields of obesity, overweight, body image disturbances, psychological metaphors, narrative theory, and narrative approach as my master thesis in clinical psychology and some research projects in collaboration with National Nutrition and Food Technology in my country. In this annual conference, Prevention and Management of Obesity through Lifestyle Interventions, Concepts and Practice, I want to talk about this theme. What does it mean to live with a condition of obesity? A narrative exploration. I want to start with this famous quote, once upon a time, obesity. My body is like a swamp. Whatever I pour into my body, it begins to sink. I have been sunk into myself too. Every day, I sink more than before. My body is the only thing that I really want to throw away. But it seems as if I myself cannot do it. How come I got captured into my body? Who would believe that I took several actions so as to step away from my body, but every time I became more frustrated than before. Wherever I take my body, it is still the same shape. It seems that the universe does not intend to look at me in another shape. That is why the world has become monotonous and unchanging to me. This note seems to be like a short story, perhaps like the destiny of a person. It could be written by a famous author, or it could be a narration of an obese adolescent about her or his life. The last one is correct, of course. I suggest it is better for a nutritionist to wait a bit after hearing the above-mentioned sentences before saying immediately, weight yourself with a pair of scales. Confucius, the Chinese philosopher, says, the way you cut your meat reflects the way you live. Eating has never been a minor issue. Food is a central activity of mankind and one of the single most significant trademarks of a culture. Dietetics is probably one of the oldest forms of human knowledge. There is not just one story about food or obesity. Everyone in the world has a special narrative about eating. The pleasures of the table are for every person of every land. Nowadays, food gets a complicated story. The strong cultural value placed on slimness, especially for adolescents, unfortunately may take precedence over health. Modern Western cultures emphasizes slimness, denigrates excess weight, and stigmatizes obese individuals, making it likely that the obese people internalize these messages and feel badly about the physical presence that brands them. It is also important to keep in mind that it is not always obvious what exactly our body is and how we perceive it. All branches in the humanities try to explain the cultural construction of the human body. Especially the postmodern discussion about the body has influenced disciplines like sociology, cultural and gender studies, as well as the history of biology and medicine. In fact, psychotherapists are concerned with people's stories. They work with case histories and use narrative explanations to understand why the people they work with behave the way they do. In addition, psychology in recent decades has seen the emergence of patterns and increasing number of approaches to cure which have made changes to individual and family therapies and have put it on a new and innovative path. Some of these approaches are a reflection of the phenomenon which is called the postmodern paradigm. The intellectual following these perspectives believes that knowledge and recognition are relative subjects, depends on their context. In their view, our belief system is solely reflecting structures of social mentality. In other words, different perspectives rather than the absolute reality that we have created about our world. Narrative practitioners assume that people's experiences of problems are shaped by stories, which are social constructions. Indeed, these are not individual constructions. In any social group, small or large, we are all participants in each other's stories. We each shape and are shaped by the beliefs, intentions, and actions of others. Collectively, we all participate in discourses. A narrative analytic approach looks at the story being told by the teller and fully acknowledges that individuals construct the self, both past and present, through narrative. Narrative analysis is useful when the interest is in how and why a story is constructed as it is, what it accomplishes, and how the audience affects what may be told. The centrality of narrative to some forms of therapeutic practices dates back at least to the end of the 19th century in the writings of Sigmund Freud. A primary assumption of Freud's psychoanalytic theory is that the symptom carries a meaning and is connected with the experience of the patient. It is hypothesized that obesity is one of our narratives that may impact the effectiveness of diet therapy by affecting mental health quality. Moreover, the body mass index of obese and overweight people could also be affected by life narratives. Living with obesity may be perceived as an individual experience phenomenon, which is contextually conditioned by mutual exchange with other people, cultural stigma, time and place. As a matter of fact, the obese body is at the forefront of all experience. Despite the efforts of individuals and public and private services aimed at weight reduction, the population keeps getting heavier. This suggests a need to ask what factors, other than rational choices, may be influencing dietary patterns and habits. It is obvious that the lived body is a habitual body. Everyday life narratives of obese people show the important differences in the ways in which individuals relate themselves to habits. People live in a world that their language defines them. It has been suggested that lived experiences are shaped into narrative structures or stories to give a frame of reference for understanding and making experiences understandable. A focus on stories is a way of thinking, more specifically, narrative thinking. Obesity may not be the same story for all people in different societies and cultures. All people have stories to tell about their lives and who they are in the world. In fact, we become what we eat. An understanding of lived experiences from the viewpoint of obese people may shed light on how different cultures and genders make different habits and life narratives, and how relationship between body mass index, dietary patterns, and life narratives can lead to healthier and weight-reducing way of life. While the health expenses of obesity are on the rise, the existence and the nature of the relationship between obesity and psychological aspects is less obvious. Since obesity is a phenomenon which is complicated and is consisting of multiple factors that can intervene in cause and consequences of environmental, psychological, and social factors, therefore, understanding it is outside of reach of one field only. We would like to add to the knowledge about characteristics of obese people's narrative. Now I want to describe two research projects with narrative methods. The first project is, what does it mean to be an obese adolescent? Effects of outsider witnessing practice. Narrative therapy practice may help to enhance our knowledge about how an obese girl or boy responds to dietary patterns. In addition, why and how a boy or girl might change his or her life narratives in order to decrease his or her weight. The proposed research seeks to examine how eating behaviors are discursively produced and regulated for both males and females. This study is situated in postmodern post-structural theory. Our research will focus on the use of writing tasks based on appreciative inquiry and outsider witnessing process. There are rather newly developed narrative therapy conversational practices developed between 1980 till 2007 by Michael White, the founder of narrative therapy. The writing tasks we envisioned being practiced with a group of obese adolescents in a manner that provided space for the participants to store compassion for their bodies. This research will explore the writing tasks that the participants will invite to undertake and discusses the subsequent interviewing and outsider witnessing process as forms of narrative therapy practice. These following research questions will guide our research. 1. How obese adolescents change their life narratives during the period of diet therapy. 2. How an adolescent writing appreciatively about her or his own body can contribute to a compassionate relationship between them and their own body if she or he has experienced problematic relationship with her or his body in the past during the diet therapy and regaining weight. And the last one, how sharing such writing with an audience of other adolescents or family members might then extend a boy or girl's new relationship with his or her body. The second project is understanding life narratives, quality of life, self and life metaphors, body mass index, dietary intakes, hedonic hunger, and physical activity among obese and overweight adults, a cross-cultural, multi-site comparative investigation in Romania and Iran. The study goal is to introduce the psychological and nutritional aspects of obesity and overweight in Romania and Iranian obese and overweight adults. It appears that problem-saturated experiences may be a powerful force to deal with when being obese, which inspired us to do further research into how obese adults experience these aspects of life. An important feature of this study is that combines aspects of two research strategies. First one, the geographic assessment, which strives to reveal unique dimensions of a given respondent's outlook in both men and women in two different cultures. And the second, nomothetic assessment, which seeks general patterns across different groups of participants in clinical sample. We can make a comparison between two cultures, Asia and Europe, from our study and those of similar previous studies. As participants of the current study will select from both genders, we can also make a gender-based comparison. Therefore, life narratives elicited by this approach can be used as a basis of more extensive qualitative methods, especially for the construction of health-related patterns for obese people based on the cultural differences for better health policies in near future. As a result, narrative interviews, which aims to explore the lived experiences of participants in relation to bodily components, may be able to contribute more to an understanding of the process between psyche and body. Finally, special thanks to Dr. Gavrilovici for this opportunity and invitation and his collaboration in this lecture. I want to introduce our international research team. Me as an Iranian psychologist, one of my colleagues as an Iranian nutritionist, Dr. Gavrilovici, Associate Professor of Psychology, and Dr. Veronica Makano, our host, Professor of Nutrition and Eating Disorders. Special thanks to Dr. Makano for her beneficial feedbacks about these research proposals. I hope we can make new connections with other professionals interested in these research areas. We are open to hear your comments, your questions, and your ideas. Thank you for your attention. Bye for now.